Inches, March 2026. A peer-reviewed scientific study confirmed something that paranormal investigators have whispered about for over 40 years. The act of researching ghosts appears to make strange things happen to the researcher. The study, published Inches, the Journal of Scientific Exploration, surveyed 167 people who had written professionally about ghostly episodes. And across 15 measured categories of disruption, not a single category scored 0. Every single one was confirmed by someone Inches the group. Visual, type terminal your readout lines. Study, Journal of Scientific Exploration, 2026. Subjects, 167 paranormal writers surveyed. Categories, measured 15 categories. Scoring, 0. 0 status, peer-reviewed, duration. And the strangest finding wasn't the dreams or the cold spots or the missing recordings. It was a citation that appeared Inches, a peer-reviewed paper that none of the authors wrote. None of them remembered seeing, and none of them could trace to any stage of drafting, editing, or peer review. But before we get to that citation, and what happened when the journal issued its formal correction, you need to hear what an American journalist named Arthur Myers reported, decades before this study was even conceived. Arthur Myers was not a fringe figure. Born Inches 1917, he was the author of 21 books and more than 150 articles for mainstream publications: Saturday Review, Ladies' Home Journal, Sports Illustrated. He was a working American journalist with serious credentials. Visual, type sheer conspiracy, Sudders, board nodes. Arthur Myers, journalist, 1917-2006, Saturday Review, Mainstream Press, Paranormal Books, 1980s-1990s, Disruptions, Notes Vanish and Return, Audio Anomalies, Voices Reversed on Tape. Duration tale. But Inches, the 1980s and 1990s, Myers began documenting something that troubled him deeply. Every single time he worked on a paranormal project, things went wrong, Inches' oddly specific ways. Notes would disappear from his desk, and then reappear, sometimes days later. Inches, places he had already searched. Rolls of film would vanish entirely. Audio recordings of his interviews would come back with portions missing or with voices reversed on the tape. Myers tested his own observation, Inches, the most scientific way available to a journalist. He tracked the pattern, and he wrote something extraordinary. When he finished a paranormal book and moved on to write about other subjects, sports, lifestyle, general interest journalism, everything stopped. The disruptions ended the moment he stopped researching ghosts. Visual, type your data glitch value, true. 21. Unit paranormal books, context, each one followed by documented disruptions, duration. For decades, Myers' observation lived Inches the margins of paranormal literature, a curiosity, an anecdote. Until 5 researchers decided to find out if Myers had simply been unlucky, or if he had stumbled onto something measurable. The team, James Horan, Rents Lang, Brandon Masulo, Ciaran O'Keefe, and D. Schumacher, assembled a survey group of 167 writers. 7 were credentialed frontier scientists. The remaining 160 were amateur paranormal investigators with documented written work Inches the field. They built a questionnaire measuring 15 distinct categories of disruption: vivid dreams, sudden emotional shifts, time distortion, the sense that minutes had passed when hours had vanished, unexplained physical sensations, chills, pressure on the chest, the sensation of being touched, and the persistent feeling that something unseen was present. Inches the room. Data, type stat value. 15 unit categories, context, every single one confirmed by respondents dramatic true. When the results came in, the pattern wasn't subtle. It wasn't statistical noise. Every single one of the 15 categories was confirmed by at least one person, Inches the group. Not one category scored 0. And here is where the study breaks from everything we thought we knew about haunted places. Inches, the popular imagination, ghostly phenomena are tied to locations: a haunted house, a battlefield, a specific room. The famous hitchhiker effect, documented at Skinwalker Ranch, Inches, Utah, describes anomalous experiences that follow researchers home, but the trigger is still the place. You visit the location. The phenomenon attaches itself to you. You bring it home. The 2026 survey measured something different, something stranger: visual, type, signal, interference. Duration. The disruptions did not require a physical location. They did not require visiting a haunted site. According to the data, the phenomenon attaches itself to the act of writing, to sustained intellectual immersion. Inches paranormal material itself. You don't have to go anywhere. You simply have to study it long enough, write about it carefully enough, think about it deeply enough. And then, according to 167 respondents, it starts to study you back, which brings us back to the citation. Inches early 2026, a peer-reviewed paper. Inches this same field was published with a reference list. Standard academic practice. Every citation traceable. Every source documented. Except for one. One citation. Inches, that paper could not be accounted for by any of its authors. None of them wrote it. None of them remembered seeing it during drafting. None of them recalled it during editing. None of the peer reviewers flagged it as familiar. And, critically, investigators confirmed it was not generated by any AI tool. It simply appeared. Inches the manuscript. The journal investigated. They issued a formal correction, and Inches that correction, they identified not one, but 6 additional untraced citation errors. Inches the same paper. 6, none of which the authors could account for. Data, type, stat value. 6 unit, additional citations, context, untraced and unexplained. Inches, single paper. Dramatic sow, true. If this were the only anomaly, it might be dismissed as carelessness. But it isn't. Inches July 2025. One of the credentialed researchers, Inches the field, reported something equally strange. Their personal copy of a book they had cited. Inches, their work vanished from its precise location on their shelf. They knew exactly where it had been. They had used it days earlier. It was gone. As of the publication of the 2026 study, more than a year later, that book has still not been found. These are not anecdotes from anonymous internet forums. These are documented incidents involving credentialed researchers, peer-reviewed publications, and a formal journal correction. Data. Type, comparison label. Official scientific position label. Documented researcher experiences. So what are we looking at? The skeptical interpretation is straightforward. People who immerse themselves. Inches paranormal material develop heightened pattern recognition. They notice coincidences they would otherwise dismiss. Lost notes become vanished. Forgotten citations become anomalous. Confirmation bias does the rest. But the 2026 study was specifically designed to address that critique. The 15 categories were defined. Inches advance. The questions were structured. The 7 credentialed scientists. Inches the sample were not amateur ghost hunters. They were trained researchers familiar with cognitive bias. And still, every category scored above 0. Every single one. Arthur Myers died. Inches 2006. He spent the final decades of his career documenting his own pattern. The missing notes, the reversed audio, the films that vanished. He believed, based on his own data, that paranormal research was not a neutral activity, that something about sustained engagement with the subject created a feedback loop, a response. 20 years after his death, 5 researchers published a peer-reviewed study suggesting he may have been describing something real. The question the study leaves unanswered is the one no scientific paper can resolve. What exactly is responding? Is it consciousness reaching out to consciousness? Is it a cognitive artifact we don't yet have the vocabulary to describe? Is it something genuinely external, an intelligence that notices attention paid to it? The 2026 survey doesn't tell us what it is. It only tells us that 167 people asked specific questions. Inches a controlled framework. reported the same patterns Arthur Myers documented 40 years earlier, and that a peer-reviewed journal had to formally correct a paper because 7 untraceable citations appeared inches it from nowhere. So here is the question I want to leave you with. If sustained attention to paranormal material genuinely produces measurable disruptions, if writing about ghosts really does somehow invite something back, then what does it mean that you just spent 12 minutes watching this video? Tell me inches the comments. Have you ever experienced something strange after reading or researching paranormal material? Be specific. Be honest. I read every response. And if this video made you think, subscribe. There are more documented cases I haven't told you about yet.